She interviewed, she let me have all the freedom in the world, and that's the reason I was able to be so lucky. She let me go and let me be free, and that I can never thank her enough for, my wife, Carol.
That's Sparky Anderson on the day he's inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And Sparky, you said you're like the most spoiled guy on earth. I think that's something the three of you have in common, with the strong families and the wonderful wives. Talk a little bit about your wife and your years.
Well, I seen my wife when I came from South Dakota when she was playing on the Maples in the 3rd grade. She didn't know me. I seen her. In the 5th grade, I was in her class. And from that day on, she's the only girlfriend I ever had. And we've been married 47 years in October. And I can honestly say, anything that ever happened to me in baseball, I would give back, but I would never give her back.
All right, these men have won over the crowd, especially the women in the crowd. I know my wife said to me, did you hear what they were saying about their wives? I said, I heard what you were saying about Tony, with your wife, and where did you meet your wife?
We met in Puerto Rico. I went to play winter ball in Puerto Rico in '64, and I met my wife. I went to her house because I was roommate of one was Jose Martinez, one guy who played in my team. He was from Pituca's hometown. And we went there, and it was a picture of her on the wall. And she had another 2 sisters. I met the sister, I met his mother and father. When I saw that picture, I went there for a while. I mean, I spent too much time. And I stayed there for 6 hours waiting for she came back from work. And because I wanted to meet her in that picture, because I know she was the women I want.
Peter Gammons told me yesterday as we were watching up on the stage, he said, people still ask about Pituca years later in Boston, 15 years later, how is she? How is she doing? Carlton, your wife, large family where you're coming out of. And
True, I grew up in Charlestown, similar to the town you probably grew up in, Sparky. It had 800 people when I grew up. Large family, 6 kids, 4 boys and 2 girls. And so there's a lot of interaction family-wise there. But I went to the University of New Hampshire on a basketball scholarship and met her within the first couple of months there. I was 17 years old, saw her as the basketball practice was over, we were going to the cafeteria to eat, and she happened to be there, and you know, and you can say the rest is history. But I do know that my life wouldn't have been taken care of as well. My house, my children, my career would not have taken off or continued to be played at the same level if she was not there. And I've known her, like I say, since I was 17. We've been married 30 years, and she's part of the First Wives Club. And there aren't too many of those around anymore.
The last words said at the induction ceremony, last words, Carlton, to his wife, I love you. That was a nice way of ending it. We take a break right now. When we come back, the state of the game and Carlton's place in the game, and this little incident you might recall back in 1990. We'll be back in Cooperstown at the Hall of Fame right after this. All right, we take you back now to 1990. Carlton Fisk behind the plate. Deion Sanders at the plate for the New York Yankees, taking issue with Deion at the plate. Now, so Carlton, set this up for us. What exactly happened? What transpired at the plate?
Well, it was only a reflection maybe on my being a veteran in the game. You know, I had played a long time. I had experienced a lot of good things in the game, and I had come to respect the game and appreciate the game more as I played it. And I think a lot of the young kids that come up and play, as Tony mentioned yesterday, didn't respect the uniform and didn't respect some of the communities that they played for, and didn't respect the game. And I was offended the way Deion Sanders was approaching, as I felt, my game. You know, I represented the game. A little selfish on my part, maybe, but I know from whence I came. And I think anybody that does that feels especially close to the game, and I felt as though he was violating that. He came up and would do things in the dirt and say certain things, and and then not play the game the way you're supposed to play it. And I happened to yell at him one time when he didn't run out of pop-up, and he looked at me strangely. And with a few expletives deleted here, I told him to run the ball out. He looked at me strange. Comes back up the next time up, mentions something a little derogatory, not about me, but that I won't say it on TV here, but and I took offense, not so much at what he said, but the attitude with which he approached the game. And I got in his face, and in Yankee Stadium, of all places. You know, I grew up in New England.
Yeah, where you're defending, exactly. Yeah.
I should say, leave those Yankees to their own misery.
Right.
But it was the game that I was worried about. And I said, you know something? You're playing, there's a right way and a wrong way to play this game. And you are playing it wrong. And it offends guys like me. And if you don't play this game right, I'm going to kick your butt. Right here. Right here at home plate in Yankee Stadium. And I had never done anything like that before. And I don't know what came over me. But I will tell you one thing. I never knew Dion very well. But he's a conscientious young man. Maybe the best raw physical talent that you could maybe put in a human being. The next two series we played against this guy, he's playing center field. I never seen a guy play as good as he's playing. He took 3 doubles away from me, Sparky.
Oh, he
doubles
was going to
away
run
from me.
from there on, I think. Yeah.
And he went us out to prove that he could pay attention and he could run for sure.
Now, Carlton, you go back, of course, you get your first taste of Major League Baseball in 1969. Sparky, you go back a little farther than that. Do you see a difference between the approach of the game back in the 40s and 50s, and when you're in 59, and all the way up to the present day?
Well, there's no question about that, but first of all, I think we have to blame ourselves. We, the people that are running it, I'm not talking about the player. We always want to blame the players. That's an easy out. Let's get to the people that are running the thing. They are allowing this. When you allow someone to reach in and tell them one piece of chocolate, turn your back and you come back and the jar is gone, whose fault's that? That is our fault. We have the job, the only job, is to make sure they play and act like professionals.
Tony, your son plays with the Cardinals now, and you, of course, work with the Marlins. And do you see a slightly different approach, or is it just because there's more money and there's more entitlement? What was it like compared to where you came in? And again, your bonus was basically the money for your visa to get into the country, to what, $2.50. The difference between when you broke in and the players now?
Well, it's not the money. I watch a lot of games because I travel with the team sometimes, and I watch all the home games, and when the Marlins, and I really see the difference in players, not because they want to do things, because, like Sparky say, they let them do things. So, I mean, I see the players, when I say yesterday about the uniform, they forgot about they on the field. I mean, sometimes, because they got a bad call or whatever against them. You have to respect. You have to respect. You have to let your manager go out there and argue for you. It's what we used to do. I never was thrown out a game, one game in my career, and I played 23 years in the big leagues. I never got thrown out. And they was called against me, and there was strikes and balls and all that, but I argued for a little bit, and when the manager come out, I just let him go. He's supposed to get thrown out, not me.
He's right. That's the way it's supposed to be.
All right, folks, we'll take a break right now. When we come back, Carlton Fisk made special mention of Curt Flood. Sparky Anderson did not manage replacement players. We'll talk about the state of baseball, the business of baseball management and labor when we return to Cooperstown, New York.
Carried the torch for this game, that cared so much about this game, that aren't thought of anymore, aren't mentioned much anymore. I'd like to thank Curt Flood. For his sacrifice, and it was a big one, the biggest. And Andy Messersmith and Dave McNally for their courage. And Marvin Miller and Don Fair for their tireless efforts in bringing the owners and players together. and the game is prospered as a result for their care and concern in their work.
Carlton, you came in 1972, ran right into the players' strike. What were your thoughts at that point? I mean, you must just want to get out there and play. At the same time, did you recognize the importance of that?
I don't think at the time I recognized the importance. As I mentioned yesterday, that when I grew up, baseball was simple. It was just go play, the runs, you know, that whole playing aspect, listening to it on the radio, the pennant races and the World Series. Then I get a chance to play in the big leagues. I make the team 1972, and right off it was Players Association and the strike. So the business part of the game, the player freedoms part of the game, the player rights part of the game became the big issue, and there were just battle after battle after battle. And you know, sometimes the whole situation gets broken down, but as it gets put back together, it gets to be stronger. And I think, as evidence now here in this weekend, that the players are going to come and go. It's the game you're worried about the most. And the game, I think, has survived. It is stronger and has prospered well.
Now, you guys are, it's interesting that the eras that both you men came through, both you guys broke into the reserve system, then you got into the free agency system, able to make some money, but not compared to Tony, what they're making right now, which may have crossed your mind now and then, or what Tony Perez would command on the open market. What were your thoughts now to see what's happened to the game of baseball as far as the money? Do you think, oh, if I had just been a little longer, you know, you couldn't have played much longer, but had you gone on longer in a different era, how much you would have been able to bring in?
I don't know. I would like to be playing right now, you know.
Yeah. I keep telling my parents, I said, why didn't I get born 25 years later?
Yeah, but
back then, get born in 1970 as opposed to 40s.
It was a different game back then, and you know, when we went through that strike, and everything went better for the players, and they make a better living, and the game went on and on. And right now, I think, like Carlton says, they all the players right now have to thank Kurt Flock for what he did, and for all the players in baseball.
Absolutely. Sparky, what is it? How hard is it for a manager right now to deal with players who are, you know, you had the same group. They're going to be back the next year and back the next year, and to a certain extent, most of the time, at least when you were managing the Reds, it's got to be difficult for a manager these days.
I don't know why.
You don't think so?
You walk in the room, they're human beings. They're people. And I've always said this, I've never known players to leave their house and go to the stadium looking for trouble. You know, common sense with them. They're people. I don't care how much money they got. They don't care how much I got. I ain't got as much as them, but they still don't care. But they must be treated with respect. They are not a bunch of cows that you herd in off the field. No, there's no different. That's our alibi. You know why? If we can't do the job, it's easy to alibi and say to players.
You were the only manager that wouldn't manage the replacement players. I know that was foremost in your mind. It's the first thing that came out in your book. What was your thinking there? Was it more labor management? What was it, the game? What went into your decision at that?
Well, I asked you this, and if there's anybody in the audience that thinks they actually would have ever opened, you can have all my money. There was never any intention of opening, but they made a fool of a lot of people who had been out of the game for 5 to 10 years. Well, I'll tell you what, just a little hint. I lost $150,000 in that little experience, and I would have lost 5 times that, because to me, you are not going to get my honor. And so many gave up their honor for that. There was going to be no replacement players. The only players who are ever going to play are the major leaguers.
It's the right choice, Sparky. Sparky Anderson wins respect on that, as well as the rest of his career. We will take a break. When we come back, the crowd is here, and it is time for them to participate and ask their questions to the Hall of Famers, Sparky Anderson, Tony Perez, and Carlton Fisk. We'll be back to Cooperstown right after this. Friends of the Hall of Fame that are out here with us at the Clark Sports Center, just a few blocks from the Baseball Hall of Fame. We thank you for all coming. We do have questions now from the audience, and well, Carlton, I wonder what this question is going to go to right here. Let's start things off. Who are you, and your question for Carlton?
Hi, my name is Deb Malcolm. I'm from North Smithfield, Rhode Island, and my question obviously is for Carlton. I was wondering what your feelings are about being a role model for several generations of baseball fans.
I like how you said several generations. I played in 4 decades, and I was and am a role model. You know, growing up, I was always an athlete, and I was sort of the BMOC athlete. So I felt as though that I had an obligation to, at all times, carry yourself to a higher standard because you were being looked at and viewed more. And I think maybe because it started at an early age, I felt the same way as that when I started playing baseball. And you know, it might sound corny in a lot of ways, but and it brings out to even more in a setting like this that to have respect for the game, to carry the torch for the game, because without the game, you wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be here. And I felt it was important that everybody understands what this game is about and where it comes from. So if you know where you come from, then you can carry it and present it to the next group that comes by.
And our next question, give us your name and your question.
Hi, I'm Tom Morishona from Broadalbin, New York. Not too far from here. And this is directed specifically at Tony, but you two fellows want to jump in, you can. How was it like to play with Pete Rose, and do you think he should be in the Hall of Fame? And Carlton, you played against him in '75 in the series, and Sparky, you managed him for a lot of years. So, what do you think?
We'll start off for you, Tony.
Well, everybody here who watched Pete Rose play, know what kind of player he was. He gave 120% every day when he went on the field. And he was looking for a win, and he was trying to, he had to do anything to win ball games and give everything he got to the fans. They wanted watching the play. Will he belong in the Hall of Fame? Yes. Tony Perez said yes.
Sparky, your thoughts on Pete Rose?
Pete Rose deserves one thing. If they have no piece of paper to show anything on what he did as a player, in other words, they have nothing as a player, he must be separated from a player and a manager and must be voted on as a player.
A lot of people feel that way, that his legacy, he should be able to have his legacy as a player here in the Hall of Fame, and then baseball could do what they wish, you know, as far as their business. But it's a very tough question, and one that people here, of course, are dealing with on a daily basis, and people are talking about this weekend. We have one more question. Oh, look at that. We got a white sock out there. Go ahead.
All right.
Hi, my name is Matt Flood from Illinois, Orland Park, and it's for all of you. What player that is playing today would you pay to see?
All right, guys, why don't you give us, that's a good question. Most exciting player that you think is worth paying to see. Sparky, we'll start with you on the end.
I always go with the young ones. The other guys take care of themselves. But I think you've got to look at Nomar Garcia-Parra. You've got to look at Jeter. You have to look at Rodriguez, who at this point might have the lead at Seattle. And you must never forget maybe the best player in the game today in Ken Griffey Jr.
Tony?
Well, I would pay to see a lot of players right now. But I would love to see Bud Rodriguez. Sparky is a tremendous player. I would pay to see Ken Griffey Jr. play.
Your son Eduardo, someone points out.
He doesn't have to
I'd love to see
have to pay to see his son play. He gets the tickets
You
for
get
nothing.
tickets from him. I don't have to pay to see Eduardo. Well, I want to see Eduardo play all the time. I mean, this is different. But I love home runs. I like to see Maguire, and I like to see Sammy Sosa go out there and hit home runs.
And Carlton, for you?
Boy, all those names are what you think of. You know, a lot of people think that there's a big generation gap between when we played and when the guys are playing today. Make no mistake about it. These guys that are playing today can flat play this game of baseball. And the exciting part about the game is that they enjoy playing the game, and they show you how to play the game. I'm a little partial to catchers, and I was going to mention I don't know where he got the name Pudge, though, dang it. Rodriguez in Texas, probably the best catcher in the major leagues today. And you got Alex Rodriguez and Nomar Garcia-Parra. Right. But what I'd like to see, I mean, offense is a great part of the game, obviously. It's the most exciting part of the game. But you go to the game to see different things. And I'll tell you what, I'd like to go see Pedro Martinez pitch. I'd like to go see Randy Johnson pitch. So I'm partial to that end of the game, and there's a lot of those guys out there.
We have to take a break. We'll be back in Cooperstown right after this. So I got the J.G. Taylor Spink Award on Induction Day, and he said it was a labor of love. It is for me as well. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to sit here with you. Sparky, Tony, Carlton, thank you very much, gentlemen. Folks, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Brian Kenney. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Saying is 15 will get you 20. In Pete Rose's case, the alleged $15K he bet per game, according to the Dowd report, will get you a lifetime ban from baseball. Two more of Rose's fellow Reds entered the Hall of Fame yesterday, and inductee Marty Brennaman was reportedly planning to use his speech to lobby for Pete's reinstatement. That was until some of the Hall of Famers threatened to walk if he did. Sam Marciano has more on Pete's predicament.
He had a passion for the game since he was just a kid.
I think he's one of the best players that baseball's ever seen, and I think that they have cheated him.
And no one ever hit that ball like Charlie Hustle did.
What he did was totally wrong, and there's no reason to, change that ruling now.
He owns so many records, some may never fall.
Pete did a lot more for baseball than Bud Selig or a lot of other people, and he should definitely be in.
So I say Cooperstown don't mean nothing, cause Pete ain't in the Hall.
The great debate whether Pete Rose should be reinstated and inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame rages on, especially now with 4 members of Cincinnati's Big Red Machine enshrined in Cooperstown.
I had something similar that happened to me when I broke the record or when I got the ovation in Atlanta during the World Series last year. It's got to be something that's got to be worth waiting for, no matter how long you have to wait.
Baseball's all-time hits leader was in Cooperstown for the Hall of Fame's induction ceremony 2000, albeit on the outside looking in, signing autographs at $35 a pop just down the street.
Want to be in the Hall of Fame, Pete?
You can sit here at Cooperstown and watch my line and know that people have forgiven me, and I appreciate that.
Rose's exile is in accordance with Major League Rule 21, which prohibits anyone from betting on baseball. 11 years ago, Rose accepted a lifetime ban and signed a document stating that he neither admitted or denied betting on the sport or his own team. In '97, he applied for reinstatement, and although Rose hasn't been officially denied, Commissioner Bud Selig's position is clear.
Without integrity, you have no game. Without integrity, you don't have a sport. Pete voluntarily accepted from Bart Giamatti a lifetime suspension. Integrity is not something you can be flexible with.
I think he'd have a different view of the whole situation if he would ever allow me to sit down with him one-on-one and just talk to him for a couple hours.
Maybe it'll have to be when we have another commissioner. And if that's the way it has to be, then that's the way it has to be. But Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
He deserves to be enshrined because, as I said, we don't get Pete Roses. There's none out there today, and I doubt in my lifetime I'll ever see another one.
The institution of baseball is more important than Pete Rose, more important than any individual player. And if you value baseball, then you have to guard its integrity zealously.
Everything happens in sports. They're all forgiven except one thing: gambling.
Legendary Green Bay Packer Paul Hornung knows of what he speaks. Hornung, who's a friend of Rose's, was in a similar fix in 1963 when NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle suspended Hornung indefinitely for betting on NFL games, including the Packers. By contrast, Hornung admitted his guilt, and after serving a year-long suspension, Hornung returned to the Packers and was eventually inducted into the Football Hall of Fame in 1986.
I've told Pete, I said, you know, I've gone through this, and I did my mea culpas. I admitted it. I apologized to America, and Pete's not going to be able to get into the Hall of Fame, I don't think, until he absolutely tells everybody whether he did or did not bet on baseball.
If I do it all over again, I'd never call a bookmaker in my life. But I did, and it's past history. Nothing I can do about it except say you're sorry and go on to the next page.
He wants in the Hall of Fame more than any honor he has ever received. That is what he thinks about day and night.
I think the Pete Rose plaque will be in the Hall of Fame someday. And I don't know if I'll live to see it. I don't know if my kids will live to see it, but I'm pretty confident about that. That's just that's the way America is.
Thanks a lot, Pete. Thank you.
All right, Sam, thank you very much. No Reds up for induction next year, but a pretty impressive list nonetheless. Dave Winfield, member of the 3,000 hit, 400 homer club. Kirby Puckett, they're locks. Donnie Baseball has a chance, and don't count out the 2 former Dodgers getting the call as well. And you know, when you talk about Pete Rose, I played against him, and he is the best that ever played the game as far as going up there and being able to get a hit. And he should have been banned from baseball based on what he did as his managing career, and not kept out of the Hall of Fame based on what he did as a player. When he got in trouble, he was a manager, and that doesn't have anything to do with your playing career.
But let's be honest, Pete Rose actually has become a bigger icon because he is not in the Hall. He makes more money, especially this time each year as we all talk about him. Pete Rose has become larger than life because he is not in the Hall, and he's never going to fess up to it, so who knows if we will ever see him get into the Hall.
When he goes into the Hall of Fame, a few years later, we'll forget about him.
There you go. We won't want you to forget about Pete Rose, though, because that is our call. FoxSports.com, log on, let us know what you think. Does Pete Rose belong in the Hall of Fame? Let us know.
Time now for the results of your call question. Should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? Simple yes or no, and you have spoken. Overwhelmingly, yes. Put him in all, 82%.
A Shakespearean effort from Sydney. Rose's sweet bouquet has been replaced by the foul odor of corrupt behavior. Deserves only one thing, a lifetime ban. And how about Rick? A rose is a rose is a rose. Now that's deep, man. No bad rap can diminish his greatness on the field. He is Mr. Baseball.
That's right, and because we ask you to tell us, when you write in, we tell you what you said, and here's what you said.
Thanks for that.
From New York.
That was deep and insightful.
Yes, it was as good as a rose is a rose is a rose. When will Joe Torre ever start thinking of David Cohn as a middle reliever? Tell us about it, Kevin.
I don't really know. Probably another starter or two. Joe's been pretty loyal to David Cohn, as David has to the Yankees, and Joe said, you know, he's not ready to do that right now. So we'll see, as long as the Yankees are in first place.
Everyone wants to know, when is Big Mac going to be back in the lineup?
Any day now. Just like the song, any day now. You know, it's been since the 7th of July. This guy's going to have problems throughout the rest of his career. He's had back problems, leg problems, feet problems, and Big Mac's just going to have to play through it.
And I got news for you. Randy Johnson's in town tomorrow, so it might be a smart day to take another day off. Greg from Reno, Nevada says, if Texas now trades John Wetteland, where is he going to end up, Kevin?
That's a pretty interesting question, because now it's even more prevalent than ever that he could be traded, since Pedro Rodriguez is gone, and the Rangers' hopes are probably just pretty much diminished. So I think John Wetteland, surprisingly, this may surprise some people, but Doug Melvin's very close to Walt Jocketty. If Wetteland goes anywhere, I think that St. Louis would be talking to Doug Melvin about him, because he and Walt have a pretty good relationship. We'll see.
All right. What about Barry Larkin? Seth wants to know, hey, is Barry going to be in a rocking chair by the time the Reds' new stadium is ready in 2003?
Hey, I just hope there's baseball in 2003. Ooh. I'm just worried about next year after the players pick up the option and we get through the 2001 season. So I wouldn't even worry about 2003 and your new stadium there with Barry Larkin. And the guy's 36 years old, still hitting 320. So see if he can do that in 4 more years.
Yeah, having one of his best years, so you don't know what can happen to him when he's 39. Yeah. Recapping the top news in the day, especially in baseball, Pedro Rodriguez is injured. He's out for the season. And Roger Clemens wins his 5th straight game. He's 5-0 in the month of July. Please, now check out our final cut.
1-800-CALL-ATT for collect calls presents Final Cut.
Oski near the dugout, and he makes the catch.